Hello and welcome to Salute Your Sports. I'm Kamen Enchev with Tom Castleman. We've got a huge show today talking all about the NBA playoffs. Celtics and Heat tied at 2 in that series. Who's going to make the NBA Finals? We'll find out. How about the Warriors and Mavericks? The only question there seems to be whether we'll have a clean sweep as the Warriors are up 3-0 in that series. Not just NBA on the docket today, though. A lot of good stuff. We've got a little tennis. We got a little golf. And how about this? My favorite Champions League soccer final this weekend. I know Tom is so fired up to get into the Champions League talk. He might talk for 10, 15 minutes straight. He's big soccer guy. A lot of good stuff on the show today, Tom. I'm definitely fired up. How are you doing today?
Well, I certainly think I'm going to be relegated for the second half of the show, but that is okay. We will begin, as you mentioned, on the hard court and the more compelling of the two conference finals so far. We have the Boston Celtics, the Miami Heat, both winning one home game, one road game so far. So that old adage holds up. It's not a series until somebody wins a road game. And quite frankly, Gaman, these games haven't really been all that close. The series is close. The games are not. It's really this fun kind of paradox as opposed to, say, the series I'm thinking of at the top of my head, Miami Heat and Oklahoma City Thunder in that first Heat championship with LeBron James and Wade and Bosh, where a lot of those games were close, but the series itself was a 5-game series, Miami winning 4-1. So, what seems to be the reason for all the different blowouts? I have a couple ideas myself that certainly could be in play, but what are you what are you keying in on as far as that goes?
Yeah, it actually kind of reminds me of that Heat and Spurs series while we were in college, where I think it went like 7 games. I think Game 7 was close, and maybe Game 6 was close, but the first 5 games in that series were mostly blowouts. But it's been all blowouts. Actually, some of the scores actually made it look closer than it really was. I mean, Heat led Game 1 by as much as 20, went on to win by 11. Celtics led Game 2 by 34, went on to win by 25. Heat led Game 3 by 26. They only won by 6, but there was a lot of garbage points late for the Celtics. That really was never in question in that game. So, and then finally Game 4, Celtics led by 32, went on to win by 20. So I think the biggest reason for this, and it's a pretty simple one, but it's the inconsistent shooting on both teams. But first and foremost, it's what I talked about last week. You mentioned this as well. The Heat don't have a true consistent second scorer behind Jimmy Butler. In that Game 4 where they put up 82 points, Jimmy Butler was coming off an injury, shot 3 of 14 from the floor for 6 points. Game 2, they had 102 points, which is not enough to win in the modern-day NBA. Second leading scorers were Gabe Vincent and Victor Oladipo at 14 apiece. Game 1, Butler went off for 41. He had some help as well, though. They scored enough in that game. And then Game 3, Bam Adebayo had 31 points. So he can do it once in a while for the Heat, but simply it's been the Jimmy Butler show minus the last game, and they don't have a consistent number 2 guy. So that is why the point totals and performances are inconsistent for the Heat. Meanwhile, for the Celtics, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are great players, but they're up and down shooting. They drive sometimes, but they're more of traditional perimeter shooters, and if the shot isn't falling, they can be prone to cold stretches. The Celtics from 3 this series, 32%, 50%, 37.5%, and 23.5%. So Boston is very inconsistent from threes. And a lot of it is also the injuries. We've seen a lot of injuries in this whole series. So when players are playing hurt, injuries have an impact too as well.
Absolutely. I think injury is a big part of it, as you mentioned. It's also, we talked about going into the series, the inverse of, say the Heat not having a consistent second option is both the Celtics and the Heat are really, really good on defense. And what we saw in especially, Game 1 is the one that I can remember the best, which is defense turns into offense. So you get these, really big swings where it's one thing when teams are trading baskets back and forth, both teams shooting the lights out. But when you have one team asserting itself on defense, causing turnovers, cleaning up defensive rebounds, which is a big, advantage having Al Horford back in this series to kind of counterbalance against Bam Adebayo. When you take away second chance opportunities, when you reduce the number of possessions the other team is going to have, that is also going to contribute, because when you get a steal, what's that going to be? A transition bucket, which is, the holy grail really of what teams are looking for. They're looking for easy layups, easy dunks as the best way and most efficient way of putting up points. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. And then not to necessarily question effort, but it's definitely one of those things where if you're down, 15, 20 points as the game's getting on, these are long, brutal series. And we've already seen numerous injuries on both sides, on both teams in this series. So I'm sure there are games where the opposing team isn't clawing back into win because they're saying, you know what, we'll go down 2-1 because we got to pick up game 4. And so we're going to punt the ball on this one. The issue is that the series is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. It's now a 3-game series. So there's not going to be as much room for error. Game 5, as always in a tied-up series, is monumentally pivotal to who's going to be winning the overall series. So it could have also been a case where coaches are saying, you know what, we're not going to, really try to claw back in this one because we're down so many points. We're going to roll out, with our second, third unit type of thing, live to fight another day. Not so many days left. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this one goes down the wire.
Yeah, I actually think this is kind of a weird series where I know you just kind of hinted at it, and I was actually ironically going to get right into this in this next question. But the team that tends to win game 5 tends to be the one that wins the series. However, especially in Boston's case, we've seen them actually playing as a whole. I know they've had some blowout wins at home, but as a whole, they've been great on the road, even slightly better on the road than at home in these playoffs. So my question is, does home court actually even matter in this series? Because it's 2-2. I mean, Tom, you and I know each other. We've been doing the show now for almost 2 years. We did it for about 2 years in college. We're buddies. I don't want to maybe give it away yet, but I know we both are going a certain way in this series. And that way would be to say that home court doesn't matter. I mean, does it actually matter at all? Does Miami have any sort of home court advantage? Because obviously they have at least one home game. If it does go to 7, they would have 2 out of 3 home games. Is there any difference that the home court can make?
Well, I've never obviously played at a particularly high level of basketball, but I can tell you, if I have my druthers of, doing something at one place as opposed to my own place, I would rather do it at my own place. If I'm the Miami Heat, it might not necessarily be a tangible advantage simply because Boston's defense travels so well. And their role players, because they're really good on defense, are able to contribute even if shots aren't necessarily falling. In this particular series, home court might not necessarily matter as much. I typically lean more that it does just because you're in a more familiar space. The crowd is going to be on your side for whatever intangible benefit that may have. I mean, we saw it not, pay off in a meaningful way for Phoenix and Dallas. With Game 7, you would have figured that would have been a boost for that team, but
went the other way completely.
I don't see, Miami folding like a cheap card table at home, quite frankly, in Game 7. I think that, I lean the proverbial road team for this series, the team that, Boston's going to be on the road for 2 out of the next 3 games, should it go all 3. But Game 7 in Miami is going to be scary. It's going to be challenged. They're going to do the whole whiteout thing. They're going to do every little thing that they can do to get kind of like that mental advantage going for them, which is usually overplayed, but it really feels like for a team like Miami, they buy into that, and that actually helps fuel them. So I say home court advantage is going to matter, even though I think Boston is going to be coming out of this one.
Yeah, I actually disagree here. I think home court doesn't matter at all in this series. And you just said it because, and we'll get into official picks and reasons here in a little bit, but we've kind of both hinted at it. We're going to take the Celtics in this series. So I really think it doesn't matter. The stats are Boston are 5-2 on the road in the playoffs, 5-3 at home in the playoffs. So they won a huge game 6 in Milwaukee. They could have lost that series 4-2, go on to win in 7 games. Heat, by the way, they've proven they can win on the road as well. They did close out the Sixers series in Philly. But simply, I get what you're saying. I know that extra little home court thing, that tends to be a thing. But I think that these two teams are also very, very familiar with each other. They're familiar with playing in those arenas. And these same two teams, as constructed, are pretty similar with what we've seen the last couple of years. I know each team has added and dropped a few guys, but you look at the core of Miami, I mean, the guys that were the key to their NBA final appearance a couple of years ago, it's Butler, Adebayo, Tyler Hero. I know he's not playing as much, but like Duncan Robinson is on the team still. Boston, by the way, like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, these are guys we've had in the last few seasons. So I think these two teams are so familiar with each other and they're so familiar with that opposing arena that I truly don't think it really matters. And specifically, like where it would matter is like, I agree, Miami seems to be a little bit more comfortable at home. But Boston specifically, who is going to play, one extra road game if it goes to 7, if it goes to 6, they won't, obviously. But because Boston is going to be the team that would, in theory, play the extra road game, I think it doesn't matter because Boston has been so good on the road, and they've proven to be good in the close road games as well, which I think is very, very important for them. So I don't think it really matters to me. Home court, throw it out the window in this series. Quite frankly, and we'll get to this a little bit later, but I don't think it's going to matter in the NBA Finals either because the Warriors have won a record 26 straight series they've had a road win in. So I really don't buy into the home road thing at this stage, especially given that these teams obviously have been really good throughout the whole playoffs. It's at the end of the playoffs. They can win anywhere.
Absolutely. So definitely leaning Boston on this series. We'll touch on a couple different keys for why we like, both like the Celtics. I'm sure we might have a couple different reasons for that. But to go to the complete antithesis of this series, 3 games in, Golden State and Dallas. And it's been all Golden State. It hasn't even really been particularly close throughout this series. Luka has been filling up the stat sheet, but it hasn't really been mattering. I think are the Mavericks like 2-6 in Luka's career when he scores 40 or more, something like that. It's an absurd number, which, like kind of like riddle me that type of thing, because we were talking a little bit last week. I was kind of keying in on how Luka is a more effective superstar when he doesn't have to try to accommodate another superstar. He's able to play the game in his own flow and just requires a lot of good role players around him. It just seems like Dallas's role players have been kind of up and down. Sometimes, Jalen Brunson's been pretty consistently good, but sometimes Dinwiddie's up, sometimes he's down.
Finney Smith.
Are we going to see any sort of new history broken? Golden State already famous for dropping a 3-1 lead against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Is Luka going to LeBron James this one?
I don't think so. I think this is going to be a clean sweep for the Warriors. I do want to get into that, but I want to real quickly before we dive into that, I just wanted to get, because you mentioned 7 games, I just wanted to get your take on whether that Boston-Miami series is 7 and why exactly you think either, Boston's going to win the series. Because I think for me, Boston's going to win the series because of what we talked about. I think we both picked Boston in 7 when the series started. We both seem to be on track for that. Like I said, Celtics 5-2 on the road in these playoffs. And I think like we've talked about, they got 2 great scorers, Tatum and Brown. And actually, Jaylen Brown is one of the most underrated players in the league. I was looking at his and Tatum statistics. He's at like just under 3 points less per game than Tatum on the season in the regular and postseason. and his efficiency numbers are pretty similar. His overall numbers are not far behind Tatum. And I'd argue that he'd be scoring, more points per game if he didn't have Tatum on his team. And I think we have a lot of injuries in this series. Marcus Smart's hurt. Robert Williams is hurt for Boston. But I think that Miami's injuries are actually worse because Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero are banged up, and that's, their best scorer and arguably their second best scorer. So I even think that Boston is ever slightly better if both teams are fully healthy, but especially given the health of Miami, I think Boston's the better team, and they have a more explosive offense than Miami. I really do, because they have the two scorers, like we said. They've got two guys who can ISO and score, whereas Miami has Jimmy Butler, an injured Jimmy Butler at the moment, who played really bad the last series. So I'm so torn. Obviously, I think Miami can win this series. It wouldn't shock me, but I'm definitely leaning Boston. I'm torn on whether this is going to go 6 or 7. Definitely sounds like you're thinking 7. I'm not sure. I'm really torn on the exact amount of games.
I think this one's going to go 7, just because, I think Miami's going to win at least one of these 2 games coming up. Obviously, they have to in order for it to go to 7. But just like, I think Boston, like you said, better advantage because they have more established superstars and they have a little bit better help, or a little bit better health, rather, with their help players in terms of, Robert Williams, Marcus Smart, who aren't necessarily great offensively, but give a lot of life to their defense. I mean, I could definitely see Miami winning Game 5, Boston having to fight back to win Game 6, and then go on the road to clean up Miami. I think that's, if I had to Nostradamus this to get to the end of the series, that's how I would say it would go. But I think, ultimately Celtics are a more talented team. It's going to be tough to overcome Miami's grit. That's why I think it's going to go 7 games.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing that. But kind of getting back to the question you asked, Warriors, Mavs, and my thought is why has this been so easy for the Warriors? I think a lot of it is, and I kind of hinted at this before the series, because I told you that if we see MVP level Steph Curry, this could be a shorter series, and that's what we're seeing right now. Steph Curry is shooting 48% from three-pointers, and I said this last week. I will say, even though I thought it would be a tighter series, I fully expected Curry to be better, and I thought he'd be even better in the finals. You talk about regression to the mean, that ever age-old saying you love to say. Curry's made a lower percentage of his threes this year than he has in a while, if not ever. So I think these threes were just going to start falling at some point, and they are falling for Curry. And I think they're not falling as much for some of the Mavs role players, like Dorian Finney-Smith. He's the guy that had 8 threes one of the games against the Suns. He's averaging 8 points per game in this series. And I think Golden State, their ball movement is creating a lot of problems for the Mavs defense. I know the Suns, yes, they can pass the ball, but they definitely ISO a lot more. They ISO Chris Paul with the pick and roll. They ISO Devin Booker. I think that the Warriors are a more dangerous overall team. And you mentioned, how they choked that 3-1 lead against the Cavaliers. We just saw the Mavs come back from 3-2 against the Suns. And the Warriors have experienced injuries to Steph and Clay over the years. Clay and KD got hurt in the finals. This is a veteran team, and they do not want to leave it to chance. They don't want to mess around. Like I said, 26 series in a row with the road win in the playoffs. They can win on the road, and I think they close it out tonight. They're the better team, and they make this a clean sweep. And I say tonight because we are recording on a Tuesday afternoon, early night. So the folks that watch this afterwards, you'll see if I was right.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's really tough to go against, any sort of logic on that in terms of, why Golden State's been better. I mean, not only have they had the better superstar in Steph Curry, they've had the better role players. So look at Andrew Wiggins, what he's been doing.
Luka!
Putting up 20 points a game, but more importantly, guarding Luka Doncic. And yeah, I talked about how Doncic is putting up big numbers, but nobody else around him really is, which is kind of like in a backwards way, its own kind of
What the Warriors
strategy.
wanted. What the Warriors wanted.
Exactly.
Other than Brunson. I'll say Brunson's been good, but they haven't had third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, etc.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, we'll let Luka get as many points as he wants. We know that he individually is not going to put up more than all of us combined. Make him work on the offensive end, so he gets a little bit less efficient over time. And then if he's not able to kind of incorporate his teammates, work them into a flow with him, how's that going to play out for Dallas? I mean, you look at this most recent game; it was the closest game of the series, with the Warriors winning 109-100. Bullock had the most assists on the Daverick Mavericks with 4, which means, Luka, sure, go ahead and put up, what did he have? He had 23 shots, got to the free throw line, 17 free ones, grabbed 11 rebounds. But I believe all of those were on the defensive end. So that's telling me he's cleaning up, just missed shots, because with the 3 ball with longer range offenses, more rebounds are going to guards. But that's telling me he's not involved in getting second chance opportunities. He's not involved in, including his teammates. So that's kind of, a reverse kryptonite way of taking away one of Luka's superpowers, and that is distributing the ball. That's been huge. And then I think it was also, was it the same game, or it may have been game 2, Kevon Looney had a really, really big game because Dallas doesn't have anybody in the post. Golden State's just like the better version of what Dallas wants to be, in large part because Golden State just has far more resources behind it. They're able to go into the tax, to keep Steph and Clay and Draymond, and pick up Andrew Wiggins, and then they'll have Jordan Poole and all these other players. That's really been the difference. It's just one team is clearly better than the other. I think we kind of got caught up a little bit with some recency bias as far as, look at, like we said, look at how great we think Phoenix is. Look at what Dallas did to Phoenix. Dallas could very well do the same thing to Golden State. And what we're seeing is that the two teams are equally matched, but when you have two teams that are equally matched in terms of style, the team that has more talent is going to win. There's no clear, definite advantage that Dallas brings to the table in terms of better defense or rebounding or what have you. So that's why we've gotten to this point. I think clean sweep is pretty fair as well. I mean, kind of teasing locks of the week. It's Dallas is favored by 1. Last I checked, I'm not entirely sure why, except for the books probably saying there's going to be a dead cat bounce effect in here where, Dallas is bound to win at least one of these. They're too good not to.
A what?
Dead cat bounce.
I've never heard that. I mean, explain to me. Explain yourself.
I'm going to look up the exact definition, because it's basically, I'll let you get to the next point. I'll come back to dead cat bounce with a better explanation.
I cannot wait for that. Yeah, I think one of the things to think about here, you kind of said it, they're pretty similar styles, but here's the irony. A lot of people think of the Warriors as a great three-point shooting team and as a team that, lives and dies by the 3. That's not to say that there's not some truth to that, but I think that gets almost overblown, because something Golden State has always been great at doing is driving to the basket. That is one of the most underrated parts of Golden State's game, as well as Stephen Curry's game. He actually shoots extremely efficiently from 2-pointers because he gets a lot of floaters, gets a lot of layups. And if Dallas's 3s aren't going in, they're in trouble. They can win game 4 if they get hot from deep, but I'm banking on Warriors playing good D, and I'm banking on them still staying hot. And that was the difference in that one game where they came back. They were down 14 at the half, came back and won the game, I think, by 9. And it was because they made a lot of 2-pointers. They didn't rush the 3s like the Rockets did a few years back, like the Mavericks. Warriors are able to make adjustments and score the ball in multiple ways, which is something that doesn't get talked about enough. Dead cat bounce me, Tom.
All right. So it is a term used in finance where a dead cat bounce is a small, brief recovery in the price of a declining stock. So to put it into sports context, this is derived from an idea that even a dead cat will bounce if it falls from a great height.
I love it.
So basically it's just that, Dallas is done, but, they'll have one last flurry. they'll pick up a win, but there's no way that they're going to come back and win the series. So it's a little more macabre way of saying a gentleman's sweep.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are leaning that way. I think the books are leaning that way. I personally disagree with the books, but we will definitely see. I think that the Warriors, they don't want that same as that Grizzlies series. And I don't know. Steph said it himself. They're playing their best basketball of the season right now. It has been definitely awesome to see. I know we want to hit on before we move on from basketball at the moment as to where we think sort of, because they are the betting favorite right now. Where do we think they land on that stage? If you want to, ask the question or get into it.
Oh, in terms of, Golden State.
Are they the clear favorite? I know, like, and by clear favorite, like, are you convinced they're going to win the championship, or do you think it's a classic toss-up?
I don't think it's necessarily a classic toss-up, but I don't think that Golden State is in the same spot that they were a couple years back when they had Kevin Durant on the team. And it was like, okay, this is definitely going to be the NBA champion. I mean, obviously, they're the betting favorite right now. I would not be surprised at all if Golden State won the championship. I'm coming around to Boston, though. I mean, I got to give credit where it's due. There are a lot of national people out there who were saying, keep an eye on Boston when this entire playoff started, where they said, and we said the same thing, hey, something smells funny about the Brooklyn Nets, so I'm going Boston. I said, something smells funny about the Brooklyn Nets, but I'm still going to have some. I'm still going to put some of it on my plate in this NBA playoffs buffet. Making that mistake. Boston has a very real opportunity because I think they can match up pretty well. I mean, Tatum and Brown are both great scorers and also willing defenders, and that's going to be key against Golden State. Obviously, Marcus Smart's basically just going to pester Stephen Curry all series long. And then the key thing is going to be, Al Horford, Robert Williams III, providing that size disadvantage. That's the market inefficiency that Boston can have. I could very easily see Boston winning the whole thing. I think it's a little bit more challenging to see, Miami, if they end up coming out of the East, winning it all. I think I would probably say in that case it would be a pretty clear advantage Golden State. But if it's Boston and Golden State, I think there could be value there if one wanted to do something with that notion.
I half agree, half disagree with you. Obviously, like, as Kevin Garnett would say, anything is possible. And I also agree with you in the sense that Miami would be an easier matchup for Golden State. But I think it's one of those things where we've kind of caught ourselves sort of like overthinking things in the playoffs a little bit. I know you and I both, while we have bet against Boston in the playoffs, we both acknowledge that it could go either way. And I think a lot of people acknowledge that the East was wide open. I think there was not a single team that you felt like those guys are definitely going to do it. I mean, I said it on the show. You looked at the Nets, you looked at the Celtics, you looked at the Heat, even the Sixers, obviously, and Boston. There was Milwaukee. Any one of those teams was truly capable of winning the East. And I think Boston has to get a lot of credit. You're right. However, I'm actually coming around the other way. Even though I picked Golden State at the All-Star break, I picked Golden State before the playoffs started, I was not convinced on Golden State. That was my pick because that was my gut feeling. And maybe I'm a little biased towards liking them. But the more I watch this, the more convinced I am that Golden State, to me, it's like, yes, they can lose, but I'm very confident in them winning the finals. Don't want to go as far as locking anything in. Obviously, one injury away, a few games here, a few bounces there could make the difference. I think it will be a lengthy series, but I'm actually feeling very confident in Golden State because Curry said it himself. This is the best basketball this team has played all season. And they've got a really, really good roster. And they've got a lot of guys with a chip on their shoulder. I mean, Steph and Clay, they weren't top 5 picks, and I think they both thought they should be. You look at Draymond, a second-round pick. You look at Jordan Poole, he wasn't an early pick. And Andrew Wiggins, dude was like first overall pick, and a lot of people are calling him a role player. There's a lot of talent on this team, and they're gelling really well together. I think it took a while with the return of Klay Thompson, and I think that has really made Jordan Poole struggle at times. They finally got the Jordan Poole, Stephen Curry, and Klay Thompson, all three putting up points, and Wiggins still playing with them. So I know they went away from Poole in the starting lineup. They started that death lineup at one point. They've gone away from it, but nonetheless, like, we know that they're capable of putting that lineup out there and for it to work. Kevon Looney, by the way, like you said, over 20 points in one of the games this series. Like, all of these guys are playing their best basketball right now, and they are actually fully healthy. The fact that Steph and Klay have missed some time this year, the last couple years, if anything, they've got fresh legs. You look at Boston, like, you know, there's a lot of injuries on Boston. You talk about Marcus Smart and Robert Williams. Those guys are getting hurt like every other game. So that in itself, I think, makes Golden State have an even greater advantage. So I actually think that the finals, to me, are probably going to be a 6-game series. I don't think it's going to be a 7-game series. And I feel really confident in Golden State winning the finals. And for me, this whole playoffs, I was torn. I was torn on who's going to win. I was a little bit torn on who I want to win. But as the games and the series have gone on, I think the picture is becoming more and more clear. I'm definitely locked in on wanting Golden State to win, and I'm locked in on thinking these guys are definitely going to win the championship. I guarantee it, as Charles Barkley would say.
Well, all right, Chuck, I'll let you think on that one. Moving on to something, I don't even really know how to introduce this. We've got Champions League. We're entering the common segment of the show. Champions League. We've got Liverpool. We have Real Madrid. I think I said all of that appropriately. Common, I'll have a pick for you because I always have a pick on these sorts of things, but I don't even know where to start. How's Mbappe doing for Real Madrid? I thought I heard that was going to be some real big news.
Yeah, Mbappe not on Real Madrid, choosing to stay with my boy Messi and PSG. I think that was a huge deal. He basically leveraged this way to a better PSG deal by basically telling Real Madrid he was going to sign with them, but not actually signing on the dotted line. So that did not go over well at Real Madrid. But as far as this game, if you look at BetMGM, Tom, Liverpool minus 160 to lift the trophy. Real Madrid at plus 120. So Liverpool is the favorite. They're not a heavy favorite, but they are the favorite. Liverpool is definitely the better team here. They won the English FA Cup, the Carabao Cup. They had 28 wins, 8 draws, and only 2 losses in the Premier League. In fact, they only had 3 losses in the whole season altogether. They got a wealth of attacking players: Mohamed Salah, Sadio Mane, Jota, Firmino, Luis Diaz. I mean, they got great defenders: Virgil van Dijk, a great goalie in Alisson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, great on defense, great on offense. Thiago's a beast in the midfield. Their team is incredible. I think next season, I think PSG is going to improve. I think next season, Haaland at Man City. Maybe next season, we'll have a different, better team. But I think right now, Liverpool is the best team in the world. However, I am not going to pick them to win the Champions League final. I am going with the enemy. I am a diehard Barcelona fan. I cannot stand Real Madrid. But boy, oh boy, do I respect them. These guys are the kings of clutch, the kings of luck, the kings of close games, the kings of getting outplayed and winning anyways. We saw this in, quite frankly, all of their Champions League post-group stage matches. They were outplayed by PSG. They played 2 games, 1 home, 1 away. So it is over 2-game matchup. PSG won the first game 1-0. PSG was up 1-0 in the second half. So 45 minutes left. Real Madrid was outplayed the first 3/4 of that whole tie, and they turned the game around, scored 3 goals in the second half. They win by 1. Then against Chelsea, they were down a goal on aggregate. They score with about 10 minutes left. Then they score in extra time to win that game. And then the craziest one yet against Man City, they lose the first leg 4-3, which, by the way, they could have lost by more. They were lucky it was that close. Then they're down 1-0 the second leg, 5-3 on aggregate. They score a goal in the 90th and 91st minute in stoppage time to send it to extra time. Then again, they win an extra time on a Benzema penalty. They weren't necessarily dominated in all three legs, but I watched the games. I saw the stats. I read the recaps, and they got outplayed against PSG. They got outplayed against Chelsea. They got outplayed against Man City, and they still won. I think this is going to be the exact same case. Thibaut Courtois is going to be a beast in goal. I think Real Madrid gets dominated most of the game, but then the clutch stars, the Benzemas, the Krooses, the Modric's, these guys that were a big part of that team that won 3 straight Champions League titles from 2016 to 2018. They won one in 2014, by the way. Carlo Ancelotti, the coach, was a part of that. He's going for his 4th Champions League crown, which would be the most ever as a coach. They simply are more clutch. They're less talented, but they'll come through in the clutch. Real Madrid wins in penalties, and that's where they get the luck in penalties as well.
Okay, so just for like my own edification, so you can have one team, you can either team to win, or it's considered a draw that's then determined on penalties as far as like the pick'em goes. Like they don't just go into like extra time or whatever.
No, they go to extra time. So if it's tied after 90 minutes, they go to extra time. They play 30 minutes of extra time. If it's still tied, they go to penalties. So actually, like Liverpool is minus 160 to win. Real Madrid is minus 120 to win or plus 120, excuse me, as far as to win the whole thing. But actually, the betting favorites are significantly higher on Liverpool to win in regulation. I think it's like plus 110 for Liverpool and plus 240 for Real Madrid. And that's what I'm thinking on. Later. Yeah, you might be talking about it, I'm sure. So that's what I'm kind of banking on. I think Real Madrid is going to be the worst team in 90 minutes, but they'll somehow find a way to keep it at like 1-1, and then in extra time and penalties, they will hold on. I mean, Thibaut Courtois, Real Madrid's goalie, by the way, Man City should have put the game away earlier. He kept making 6 saves, and those late goals they got, we forgot about him, who is probably the best goalie in the world right now. So I hate to do it. I hope I'm wrong, but I do have Real Madrid winning.
I'll go Liverpool because, to be perfectly honest with you, before we had this conversation, I thought Liverpool would be the underdog in this one because I am so used to, because, you know, you talk about Real Madrid
and
Messi
and all the favorite.
I thought that they were going to be the favorite. So I said, you know what? I went with Chelsea last year for, you know, in the EPL, just because they were the underdog. So I'll go for Liverpool as the underdog. But knowing that they're the favorite, I'll still stick with Liverpool because you and I have been agreeing on far too many things in this show. It's time we go opposite on this one.
Okay.
Moving into tennis, Common's other favorite sport, we've got the French Open. That surface is
He's not
clay.
In it.
Correct? I have that right? The French Open's on clay?
It is clay.
That sounds like Rafa time to me, but from what I'm seeing, he is not necessarily near the top for some of the favorite athletes on the podium. Of course, Novak Djokovic is leading out as the favorite on the men's side. So we'll start there, and then we'll move over to, I believe it's Iga Swiatek is the favorite, prohibitive favorite for the women. So
pretty close.
We'll start with the men's side.
So I didn't even bother looking up the betting favorites. You may look that up while I'm doing this to confirm. I'm actually would be surprised. Nadal's not the favorite. Djokovic is the betting favorite. Is that correct? That can't be right.
Djokovic is the betting favorite. Hang on, let me scroll here. So as far as the French, okay. Carry on. For some reason, it has Wimbledon listed as
that's probably what
Australian.
You're seeing.
Where's the French?
There's no way that Nadal's not the favorite. No way.
French Open women. They've got the women for third quarter outright. Where's the French for men? It might be closed, actually.
Okay, well, I don't know. I'd have to look that up myself. I got to imagine Nadal's the favorite, Tom. 106 wins and 3 losses in his French Open career. He's won 13 of the 16, I believe, French Opens he's been in. So that is the easy pick. He's the king of clay. And keep this in mind. He's got one more major than Djokovic and Federer. He would go up 2 majors on both of those guys if he wins the French Open. He definitely's got to be thinking about that in his mind. I watched his opening round match the other day. His opponent was frustrated. That is what Nadal does to you. He makes you beat yourself. He makes you get frustrated. I definitely have Rafael Nadal to win the French Open. I mean, I would bet Nadal versus the field. I know I'm not really going on the limb because, like I said, he's won 13 of these, I believe. But yeah, Rafa's my pick. Did you look up the betting stuff, maybe?
I'm looking for it now. So I think it's, it's going to make me do math. Rafa is, what is that, 23-5, and Djokovic is 21-10. What is this? What are these numbers? I'm off Bovada because they don't have it. So I guess Rafa's still the favorite. Yeah, I know you've got a couple different options on your side. I'll go with Djokovic on this one. I know Rafa owns on clay, but Djokovic just seems to be in better health attending the French Open this year than Rafa typically is. So I'll go with Novak Djokovic.
Wow, Novak Djokovic. Okay. I actually got to look at the draw because I know Nadal, because he's missed so many games, he's not the highest seeded player. Here we go. Oh, wow. I'm looking at this 3 days ago. Caesars Sportsbook. It does have Djokovic as the favorite. Holy cow. All right. I got to go put some money on Nadal right there. That's crazy. Are you kidding me? What is going on? All right.
I don't know. How old is, what's the age difference between Djokovic and Nadal? Isn't it a couple of years? Like that, it just might be, the Tom Brady thing where it's like, oh, he's bound to fall off a cliff. He's bound to fall off a cliff. We say that for 7 years or whatever it is.
Didn't Nadal just win the Australian Open? He just won the last major. I mean, come on. What are we talking about here? I'm looking at the odds, and these may have changed since the tournament started. It doesn't even have Nadal as the second favorite. It's got Novak Djokovic plus 200, Carlos Alcaraz plus 225, and Rafael Nadal plus 400.
Actually, I'm going with Carlos Alcaraz. I'm with Djokovic. I'm going with Alcaraz on that one because I was looking, as I was on Bovada, I realized it was the Wimbledon odds that I was looking at. But I'm going to stick with him. He's my new guy. Tsitsipas is out. Alcaraz is in.
All right, put your mortgage down on Nadal plus 400 so you can win some money. Mortgage bet that. Put your mortgage down, Tom.
It's been a long time since we've had mortgage bets, and I don't know. It's been mostly a good thing, I think.
I don't get the odds, man. This was as of 3 days ago. These must have changed. According to Caesars Sportsbook, I'm looking at an article as of 3 days ago, plus 400. So those odds might be like, it's probably plus 3 something because he's obviously advanced early on in the tournament. And Tsitsipas was at plus 400. And let me look at Tsitsipas's match because he was losing earlier. Actually, Tsitsipas is about to win in the 5th set. So he is moving on. But wild. I'm definitely going Nadal here. And I'm going to actually, I'm going to place a bet on it. Like, might be 10, 20 bucks, nothing too crazy. But at the plus 400 or plus 300 something, plus 400 something, who knows? It's going to pay out. And I will take my money and go treat myself to a fancy lunch somewhere.
Absolutely. Well, moving over to the women's side, this I have on Bovada as the leaderboard. Iga Swiatek is at minus 175. The next shortest odd is Simona Halep at plus 1,400. So there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of parity on the women's side, Common. Do you see that there might be some sort of upset, or are you taking the favorite over the field?
Oh, absolutely taking an upset here. I mean, by the way, so I researched this, Tom. I wanted to pronounce her name correctly, and I'm 95% sure because I spelled it out phonetically. It's Iga Swiatek, I believe is how you say it. Swiatek. That is what I found after looking it up. I want to respect the number one ranked tennis player in the world on the ladies' side. She had won 28 matches in a row entering the French Open, and early on, she's been dominant. However, I'm going to pick, it's not like a major upset. I think she is the second favorite, betting favorite, like you said, but I love Simona Halep. Simona Halep might be my favorite female tennis player in the world. I call her mini Nadal because I think, like Nadal, she has great physique. She runs down a lot of shots. You think you've hit a winner, she hits it right back in your face. She's already won this tournament. She won the French Open in 2018. I think she's got a great clay court game. And I think that she actually hasn't won a major since, I believe, 2019. So I think she's due, a player as good as she is, to not having won one in a few years. I do like Simona Halep, and I guess what is considered a mini upset. I'm not going to tell you to mortgage money on Simona Halep, though, even though those odds are even better. No mortgages here. Obviously, Swiatek could easily win. Could go either way. Could be another player, too. But give me Simona Halep. She's Romanian. She's border buddies with Bulgaria. You know I'm Bulgarian. So give me those Eastern European power on Kirill and Metodi Day today. The Cyrillic alphabet. The guys that came up with it today is a holiday for that. So give me my Eastern Europe power. I went away from Eastern Europe in Novak and Serbia. I'll go Eastern Europe here. Simona Halep of Romania.
Well, I have better odds of hitting on this than I do on the men's side. I'm going to stay with the good old US of A. Go with Amanda Anisimova to win the French Open. She's like, fourth or fifth favorite to win it overall. But, I like being able to have like a little bit of like a nationality person to cheer for in terms of like, let's pick a good American player, to kind of go along with, because I don't really have much stake in a lot of other athletes as far as, tennis or soccer or whatever goes. So like when it's World Cup time, I'm all Team USA. And when it comes to these major events for, whether it's tennis or other, international soccer, I'm going to be going with USA. So Amanda Anisimova, I believe the top ranked American in the field. I'll pick her to win it all.
And if you're Team USA in golf, which you actually kind of aren't because you love Matsuyama so much, you must have been quite happy because switching over from tennis to golf, we had a crazy finish at the PGA Championship. Really, to be frank, a heartbreaking one. Now, we had Mito Pereira. He was never, ever supposed to be where he found himself on the 72nd hole. Not only is he a rookie, he's yet to win a PGA Tour event. He was making his PGA Championship debut, closed as a 175-1 long shot to win the tournament at the Caesars Sportsbook. And if you put money on that 175-1, your dreams were crushed. Entering the final round, he had a 3-stroke lead. Entering the final hole, he was up. He needed a par to win the tournament, needed a bogey to go to a playoff, and he double bogeys, completely mishits his shot, crumbles at the end, double bogeys on the 18th hole. Meanwhile, Justin Thomas and Will Zalatoris were clutch, went on to play in the playoff. Justin Thomas went on to win his second PGA Championship. Playing great down the stretch, playing great in the playoff. My pick, Rory McIlroy, by the way, finished 8th. He was 2 under, 3 shots off the 72-hole lead. I can't remember who you picked, Tom, but definitely a historic and sad crumble for Mito and a historic win for Justin Thomas. Is that who you had?
No, I had a different American. I had Colin Morikawa as he finished well off the pace. I think he was like +6 or +8, something like that. Not a great
Higher
showing.
than Tiger Woods?
That's true. I guess he can put, feather in his cap for that one. Yeah, no, I didn't catch the last couple rounds or anything like that. I was just kind of like tracking it on my phone and kind of saying like, oh, Zalatoris kind of storming back because Rory had the lead early on, and then it was like, okay, Zalatoris is going to have it, and then like you said, this relative no name, somebody I'd never heard of, and then I look at the headlines, it's Thomas winning it all. It's just, I'm sure it's a wild finish on that one. It can't help but feel bad for, like you said, first time like on the cusp of absolute glory, and to just come up a little short or a little long or however he missed those last couple putts is just absolutely gut wrenching. As somebody who in much smaller instances has also experienced that sort of thing, it's just really tough to get over. Hopefully he does so and is able to get back and actually finish a tournament hoisting up a trophy, a jacket, whatever is the prop of choice for that tournament.
Yeah, I kind of wonder for Mito Pereira whether that's something that, like, does he take away the confidence from a great performance overall at the PGA Championship, or does he take away the, quite frankly, not to like be rude, but it's true, the choke job at the end?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is one of those tournaments that could propel his career to the next level, or it could take it downwards, and it could be the one-time magic. Speaking of downwards, I don't want to spend too much time talking about it. It's been a few days, but Tiger Woods clearly was injured. I think it was the worst round of his PGA Tour career on Saturday. So it'll be interesting to see. He didn't even play in the final round. And that's what we've seen with Tiger. He's come out, played okay the first couple days. He's made cuts at the Masters, at the PGA Championship. But that third, fourth day, it's been tough on him physically. So hopefully he can recover and do better long-term. But definitely congratulations to Justin Thomas on a huge win for him. Former world number one. I mean, he's still up there. He's still a great player, but he hadn't won a major in a little bit. And great for him to win the PGA Championship on American soil for the American.
Absolutely. Moving into locks of the week, how many you mentioned to me off air, just to get like a little, like, make sure we're on the same page as far as our score recaps go. So what I have so far,
yours and Drew's records.
So right now I have Drew at 71, 64, and 2.
Okay, that
I am
right.
at 71, 63, and 3. So I have like a half game advantage by virtue of having one more tie than Drew does loss.
Okay, perfect. So you had Drew at 3-0 last week, though?
I did, yes.
All right, so huge week for Drew Brackett, who again is not with us, but he's sending in those locks of the week remotely. Actually, since he started sending them in, he was on a horrific stretch the last few weeks. But he has rebounded since. 3-0 week for Drew. He had the Oilers plus 125 over the Flames in game 2 of that second round hockey series. We'll get more into hockey in the coming weeks at some point. I know we talked about hockey the past couple weeks. But correct for Drew, Oilers winning 5-3 in game 2. He had the Warriors minus a 4.5 over the Mavericks in game 1. He was correct. 112-87 Warriors win. And a little EPL, English Premier League action. Drew had Aston Villa and Burnley under 2.5 goals. That was correct. 1-1 draw, 2 total goals. Just a dreadful week for me. I definitely should not, I'll get to the third game, the one that I'm upset about that I put in. But first and foremost, I got a little bit barbecued on Jason Tatum's over under 27.5 points. He did have 29. So, could have missed one more field goal I could have hit. Thanks for that, Jason. Celtics Heat under 203.5 points in game 1. A lot of signs pointed to a low scoring series. And, you'll see in a second, I might go that route again, see how much I can barbecue myself on the under there. But it was 118-107 Heat, 225 total points. And then you said it yourself, man. I rarely bet against the Warriors. I tend to bet for the Warriors a lot. I win a lot of my bets on the Warriors. I got caught up in that recency bias, as you like to call it, Tom. Felt like the Mavs had the hot hand. I did pick Golden State to win game 1, but I thought the Mavs would cover 4.5. Obviously, they did not. And I had you at 1-2. Is that correct? This last week? So actually,
that is correct. Yeah.
We've been doing pretty good the last few weeks. Not the best week for us. You were 1-2. Angels 1.5 over the Rangers on May 18th. Rangers winning 6-5. You had the Mets -1.5 for plus money at plus 105 against the Cardinals. Got that one right. Mets winning 11-4. And then you had the Marlins -1.5 over the Nationals at plus 135. That was wrong. The Nats winning 5-4. So I'll get into Drew's picks real quickly, and then I'll let you give me your picks. So Drew has a little NBA action on Wednesday, May 25th. Again, we're recording on Tuesday, May 24th. He's got the Heat plus 1.5 at the Celtics in game 5. So Drew actually thinking Miami might win game 5. I know. I'm not sure which way we're thinking, actually. We didn't actually make an official.
I'm thinking Heat wins game 5, but Boston closes out 6-7.
So you are going against Drew. That's a dangerous predicament for you.
No, I'm with him on that one.
Oh, you are with him. Okay,
Yep.
okay. So, all right, well then, hey, if that's what Drew has, I got to agree with it. Drew is the expert. I'll take the Heat in game 5, the Celtics to win the series in 7. A little more hockey for Drew. A lot of good hockey picks last week. Blues Avalanche under 6.5 goals for Drew. 5:25. That is Wednesday in a little playoff hockey action. And finally, it wouldn't be Drew's locks of the week without an under on a soccer game. No longer has the Premier League to go. Premier League is done. I'll have more on that in locks of the week, or not locks of the week, statement of the week rather. But Atlanta United, Columbus Crew under 2.5 goals for Drew on 5:28. I think that is Saturday. I don't know if I got my days right. What do you have for your locks this week, Tom?
Oh, I'm just going to mess around with a whole bunch of stuff I absolutely should not be dabbling in. As I hinted at earlier, I'll go ahead and take Liverpool to win in 90 minutes in regulation plus extra time, as that is at plus 110. And as you know, recently I have been. Yes.
Real quickly, I do want to clarify. So the way soccer betting works, and I want to make sure I clarify this, because I want to know if you'll still take your bet. So the plus 110 would be over 90 minutes. So if it goes to extra time, if they win, say 2-1, and they do that 30-minute extra period, you would lose the bet. So it's over 90 minutes.
To be honest, I thought matches were 60 minutes, and then with an extra 30 minutes got to 90. You know what? I'm just going to roll with it because, like I said, I'm dabbling in stuff that I don't fully comprehend. So Liverpool to win in regulation. That is going to be on this Saturday, May 28th. On May 25th, give me the White Sox minus 1.5 runs over the Boston Red Sox. That is at plus 120. Lucas Giolito on the hill against, Rich Hill for the Red Sox. And
is that the same Rich Hill still pitching, Cubs pitcher?
Same guy.
Still going. Minus 1.5.
Same guy.
That's crazy. That dude has been pitching forever. So it's Wednesday, White Sox, Red Sox, White Sox minus 1.5.
Yep. And then I am kind of in a toss-up on this one because I'm leaning tonight's basketball game, Warriors on the money line. It's not plus money. It's even money. So I'll be even money casting on this one. Or I could go and give you at plus 1,600.
Oh no!
Andrew Wiggins to win the Western Conference Finals MVP, putting up 20.7 points per game, averaging like 4 rebounds, 3 assists, something like that. Or no, let me see if I can find the actual numbers. I had it pulled up in a tab and then I closed said tab.
Don't do
but
it
he's
to
been
yourself.
doing pretty well. He's been guarding Luka Doncic this entire series. The Mavs have been really ineffective. I won't go plus 1,600.
Okay,
That'd be glorious. I could hit that. I'll just take Warriors on the money line tonight.
Awesome. Well, hey, by the way, Tom, I actually other than the Liverpool pick, I mean, I don't know. Actually, I don't know. I haven't really delved much into White Sox or Red Sox, but I actually love the Warriors bet that you're making here. So I disagree with Liverpool, but I can see it. I hope you're right as a Barca fan. At the same time, though, if Real Madrid does win, it actually makes Ronaldo look bad because they would win the Champions League without Ronaldo. So that's my other normally I'm so anti-Real Madrid, but if they were to win one Champions League title several years after Ronaldo leaves, as a Messi fan, I can sort of live with it. So I'm like completely torn on that game as to who's going to win, as to who I want to win. I guess I'm leaning Liverpool for wanting, but I just have a feeling on Real Madrid. But we'll see. We'll see. I actually am pulling up my phone right now. I have the updated odds on the Warriors game, and I'm seeing it at plus 105 on the money line. So it was Warriors. Take that. Yeah, it was Warriors plus 1 earlier in the day, and now I'm seeing it at Warriors plus 1.5. So I'm going to take the plus money as well. I'm going to go Warriors money line. Get yourself a little extra money there, plus 105. We talked about this earlier in the show, but Warriors have won a road playoff game in 26 straight series. These guys know how to win road playoff games. They already won game 3 on the road against the Mavs. They're simply the better team here. The Mavs role players aren't scoring as much on that great Golden State defense. Curry is shooting just under 50% from 3. Clay is back. Draymond is being Draymond. Jordan Poole's playing great. Andrew Wiggins, while I don't condone any plus 1,600 bets on him winning conference finals MVP, Andrew Wiggins, dare I say it, is playing like a number 1 overall pick in this series, throwing down dunks in Luka's face. We got Kevon Looney getting 20-plus points in some random games. I mean, Kevon Looney, he's like the Warriors' like 7th option or whatever. So Steph himself said it. The Warriors are playing their best ball all season. I know they blew that lead against the Cavs years ago with the same core. I know they've had a lot of injuries in recent years. So I think they just don't want to mess around. They're the better team. They know how to win on the road. Golden State straight up. It's going to be a really, really close game. Could go either way, but as we've kind of talked about in a close game, who do you trust more, the Mavs or Warriors? Because this is going to be either a double-digit win for the Mavs, who get really hot in Golden State, as you said, maybe says, let's mail it in for the next game. But if the game is close, it's going to be Golden State. I think they win a close game. And then I'm going to go to the well on this one again. This is the exact pick I made last week. The exact same over-under. So I'm going to bank on it, going 1 for 2. Celtics Heat under 203.5 points per game. You and I have talked ad nauseum. We thought this would be a low-scoring series. And the first 3 games, it's not that they were necessarily like super high scoring, but more on the high scoring side. The over was hitting the first 3 games. I thought that game 4 score 102-82. Do I think they're going to score more than that? Yes, I do. But I don't think they're going to score over 203.5. Both of these teams dealing with multiple injuries. I expect the defenses to shine. I look for under 203.5 points in game 5. That is Wednesday night. And then finally, we've talked about this game a lot. I do like Real Madrid, so I'm offering 2+ money bets on the show. I'm notorious for picking the favorites. I'm going with the underdog, Real Madrid. How often is Real Madrid in a Champions League final and is actually the underdog? Let that sink in. So they are plus 120 to lift the trophy on BetMGM. So that is Real Madrid, whether they win in regulation, whether they win in extra time, whether they win in penalties, the outright Champions League crown winner at plus 120. I talked about it. Liverpool's got the more talented team. They've got a wealth of talent on offense. They got great defensive players. They've got so much depth. I mean, They got strikers like Roberto Firmino can't get himself a regular starting spot anymore at forward with Jota and Diaz. I mean, we got Salah and Mane. These guys are awesome. Real Madrid is just simply clutch. 2016, 2017, 2018, 2014, these guys were winning Champions League crowns left and right. A lot of the core is still there. Karim Benzema, he's going to score the goals. Luka Modric, he's going to do everything. Luka Modric is like your favorite player. You don't even know who he is because that dude does everything. He's old and he's still great. Toni Kroos is a beast. Carlo Ancelotti, looking for his 4th Champions League crown. The dude has won everything as a manager. Real Madrid gets outplayed, but they're clutch in that game and lift the Champions League crown, much to this Barcelona fans' dismay. Gonna go with the heart instead of, or rather the head instead of the heart in that game. Real Madrid takes home the Champions League. I think they've got the most ever. They're only going to add on another crown for Real Madrid. I know they have the most ever, in fact. They are the kings of the Champions League. That doesn't change.
All right. Looking forward to this upcoming week. We got a lot of like head-to-head battles kind of sort of looking ahead on this one. So it'll be a lot of fun. I'm going to be keeping an eye on that Andrew Wiggins thing because I think that's interesting. Trivia, what do you have?
Yeah, real quick, Tom. We won't have a 9-0 week, but we also won't have an 0-9 week. So that is...
We can hang our hats on that.
We can hang our hats on that. So we won't have any like ties, though, I think, because we actually both took money line bets, I believe.
Yep, and it's kind of hard to tie on a half run or a half goal. So, yeah.
And Drew's got the halves as well. So we'll have 9 games for that. So sports trivia... I think you'll do pretty good with this, but I want to extend it to 11. So in the spirit of the NBA playoffs, I'm going to ask you to name the 11 leading scorers in all-time career playoff points. I say 11 because I think the guy that's 11th on this list, even though we've both grown up watching him play, is going to surprise you. So that's why I don't want to say top 10 because I think you'll get at least 7 or 8, if not all 10 in the top 10. But we're going to go top 11 because I think the 11th guy is the one on that list that is pretty surprising. So give me the top 11 scorers in playoff history strictly by career points, not points per game, career playoff points.
Well, obviously you've got LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Real quickly, you're one. If you want to keep going at the run you're at, you've got them 1, 2, 3 so far.
All
you
right.
want to try listing it as close as you can.
Let's see. Karl Malone.
So he has 7. So you're not on the 1 through 4.
I'm no longer in order anymore.
But you're still doing good.
Shaquille O'Neal.
Shaq is 5.
Kobe Bryant.
Kobe's 4. So a lot of Lakers on this list.
Absolutely. All right. So who else would be up there?
So you're missing
6. They got a lot of finals. So Tim Duncan.
Tim Duncan is 6. So you're now missing
I've got 1 through 7.
You got 1 through 7. So you need 8 through 11. So I think you're going to do, I think you're definitely going to get 1, probably 2, possibly 3. But I think the 4th one, you're going to struggle with a lot.
Mm-hmm. Is Steph on that list? Has he played enough playoff games?
Not yet. Steph is not in that list yet, but he will get there.
He will definitely be there. Let's see. Paul Pierce.
Not Paul Pierce.
Because I was thinking maybe he was the one that we'd watch. Maybe Dirk Nowitzki. He put up a lot of points.
Not Dirk.
Not Dirk. Wow.
I'm pulling up the top, like the whole top 20. So Paul Pierce is 24. Steph Curry is 22. Dirk is 17.
Wow, Dirk is a lot lower than I thought he would be.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Mavs didn't play in as many playoff games as you would think.
That's true. Yeah. So I got to go a little bit more legacy. Bill Russell, is he in the top 10?
No, that's why I tell you, Bill Russell is overrated. The dude was, okay scorer, but he was mostly a defensive player. Bill Russell all the way at number 40, soon to be 41, when Klay Thompson passes him up?
Larry Bird.
Larry Bird, not in the top 10. Larry, I think, is just outside. Larry Bird is number 13.
Gosh, who played like a lot of playoff matchups? Like Hakeem Olajuwon, maybe?
Not Hakeem. Hakeem the Dream is 15,
Oh,
so you're not far off. So
not
you've
far
got
off.
you've got two classic players and two modern-ish era players. There's one that you should get right away. There's one really, really obvious one you're missing.
Is it Iverson?
Not Iverson. I thought might be on this list, but he's not. And it's again, the Sixers just have not played enough playoff games.
Dwayne Wade. I'm starting to flail now.
Yeah, D Wade is just outside it, and actually, Dwayne Wade is 11. So actually, technically, the top 10. So actually, I'm looking at this. And this is a clue. So I will, you know what? So it depends on where you're going. So the top 9 are the same in both, or top 7 rather are the same. If you go NBA, ABA, there's one guy that's number 8 on the list. If you go strictly NBA, he's not in the top 10. So this will be a clue as a guy that...
So that's either Julius Irving or Moses Malone.
Okay, so Julius Irving would be 8th all-time counting both. So he's actually top 10 in NBA playoff history. So we got Julius. If we subtract them, this guy that I have at 11 would be 10. So you are getting Julius. You're missing one historic legend, one active player, and one recently active player. And I'm very surprised you haven't gotten the active player yet. Still playing.
Is it Kevin Durant?
Kevin Durant, yeah.
Okay.
He's played enough playoff games.
Yeah, like he fell into the same category as Steph, where it's like prolific scorer, just don't know if he's had the longevity yet. But yeah, okay, so Kevin Durant's on that list.
So this
I've got a legend and a recent retiree.
To make out the top 10. So LeBron is 1. This is NBA, not counting ABA.
Right.
If we count NBA/ABA, we would have Julius Irving in the 8th position. But we'll remove Julius for this sake. So LeBron is 1. MJ is 2. Kareem is 3. Kobe's 4. Shaq is 5. Tim Duncan 6. Karl Malone 7. Kevin Durant recently number 8. He just passed up one of the all-time legends who is 9th. And then the number 10 slot is the absolute shocker. But it's a guy that you would have seen his entire career. He's played a ton of playoff games. I think you should definitely get the legend first.
Would it be Vince Carter?
Not Vince Carter. Vince played on some teams that didn't make the playoffs. And if you remember, Toronto, for the longest time when he was in his prime, would lose in the first round. So Carter definitely wouldn't have enough games to be up there.
Recently retired. Why am I struggling to think?
Let me look up the year he retired at, because maybe it's not as recent as I thought. Well, it is pretty recent. He retired during the 2018-2019 season. You've seen him in the NBA Finals many times. Many, many, many times. And this is exactly why he's there. Let me look at his playoff point per game averages. So yeah, his career average in the playoffs, 17.9. So just at 18 points per game, which is pretty good. But obviously this is like a longevity award here.
Yeah. Why am I not doing well with this at all?
I told you it was hard. So when I first saw this, I was very surprised. But then I was like, well, this makes sense. He has won several rings. I don't want to give away a clue that gives it away. His last season was not with the team that he was winning rings. He played on a certain team for a long time. Then he had one season with another team, and then he called it quits.
So it's not Ray Allen.
Not Ray Allen.
I'm doing horribly on this one.
So
All right,
I'll
help
give
me
you,
out.
I'll give you a few easier clues.
Okay.
So here's one that I think should help. He is a point guard, and he has exactly 4 championship wins. Point guard with 4 championships, and you would have watched all of them, quite frankly. You would have been a little bit on the younger side, as he was as well during his championship rings. His last ring he was a little bit older on his last ring.
Is it Tony Parker?
Tony Parker. There you go.
Not at all associated with scoring.
Yeah.
Wow.
Really underrated scorer, though. I mean, 18 points per game in the
playoffs. Yeah.
Obviously doesn't like scream crazy at you, but 15 and a half over his career in the regular season. So obviously a little bit of a playoff rondo in him stepping up in some of those big moments. So Tony Parker is the 10th in the NBA history, 11th if we count NBA. And then you're missing the legend, who I think should be a little bit easier than Tony Parker. You are missing one of, I might have him in my top 10 all time. Most people might have him just outside their top 10, but he's probably right in that like 10 to 15 range as far as all time greatest players.
Would it be Magic just because he and the Lakers played in so many?
Not Magic, but you are warm. Warm.
I'm warm. So that means probably similar era.
A little bit before Magic.
Who was?
He's a legend.
Would it be
legend.
Like Havlicek?
Not
for
Havlicek.
The Celtics?
Havlicek is 14th, by the way. If you go NBA, ABA 13th. If you go just NBA. So that is not a bad guess. Magic is 15th, by the way, Tom.
Who's big right before the Showtime Lakers were? Like, that was probably the Celtics, but that would be like Bob Cousy's like way, way before.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Kevin McHale.
Not Kevin McHale, although he is pretty high on this list. He's 23. There's some obvious clues I can give that I don't want to give at this stage.
Okay.
But he is historically an incredible scorer when it comes to playoff points per game. I actually think he might be like, well, he's a little bit, let me see. That's total points.
Would it be Dominique?
Not Dominique. Before Dominique. Before Magic. Very, very influential player when it comes to basketball history.
Oscar Robertson?
Nope. 5th all time in career playoff points per game. 5th all time on a per game basis.
Jerry West.
Jerry West,
okay.
The logo. Wow. The logo.
Yeah, that took me a long time to get.
I thought you would do better with that one. I knew Parker would stump you, and Parker would have stumped me too. I know he played so many playoff games. That's why he's on that list. But Tony Parker, man.
And then I just forget about how good Jerry West is because he's so far before my time type of thing.
And Jerry West probably, Tom, if we're being honest, probably the most underrated player when it comes to NBA history. Like, he's 5th all time in NBA career playoff points per game. And I think he's like right around the top 5 in regular season points. And I think he played most of, if not his entire career, without the 3-point line. And he was obviously a great shooter. So Jerry West, I think when we talk about like all-time greats, I think, like I said, a lot of people have him probably outside their top 10. I probably have him at the bottom of my top 10. Like he is, I mean, I'm looking at it right now. He is 6th all-time in points per game in the regular season and 5th all-time in the playoffs. Like, that's wild. Like, where is the RESPECT? I mean, he got a lot of respect back in the day. He's got the logo, but a lot of these modern folks aren't giving Jerry enough respect. I know it's very different eras. I know they're different players.
Right.
But if you put the numbers next to each other, Jerry West is better than Kobe Bryant. And I actually have Jerry West just above Kobe, whereas most have Kobe clearly ahead of Jerry West. I know, again, comparing eras is tough, but West was also a pretty good passer, and I think a better shooter than Kobe, put up statistically better numbers than Kobe Bryant. That much is like a fact.
Mm-hmm. And of course, he's the logo for the NBA, and and Kobe, posthumously could become the logo, but also, is on the trophy for the All-Star game. Isn't Magic Johnson the player that's on the Western Conference Finals? There's a lot of Lakers.
Think about that though. Like if you think about like the all-time greatest players, like top 10, top 15, like I mean, there's Magic, Kareem, Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, Shaq, Kobe. I mean, how many of these like all-time greats are Lakers? I mean, you can make a case for like 6, 7, 8 of the top, 10, 15 players all being Lakers. It is wild how many Lakers there are. And actually I would argue considerably more Lakers than Celtics. I mean, those Celtics teams in the 80s, like Larry was amazing, but obviously Kevin McHale was really good, but none of those other guys are necessarily like all-time great players. So crazy how many Lakers there are. I mean, just in the top 10 playoff points per game, and even like LeBron technically has been a Laker. Even Karl Malone was a Laker at one point, believe it or not. So, I mean, like, we got MJ, we got Duncan, Durant, and Tony Parker, the only guys in the top 10 career playoff points that were not Lakers. 6 of the 10 were Lakers at some point in their career. And I believe, like, they all suited up for the Lakers in playoff games. Karl Malone did play in the playoffs
along with
Lakers,
Shaq and Kobe,
on the same team, and lost to the Pistons.
Absolutely. Well, into salutes and statements of the week. Mine, not necessarily topical. It's kind of like an arbitrary point at this, but I am going to give a salute to all of us on the show as far as locks of the week goes. I have tallied the totals.
No salute to me.
What I'm saying is season 1 and what I'm saying is season 2.
Improving record.
I could go blow by blow for each person for each season, but what I will say is that in season 1 of Salute Your Sports, as a show, we were 186, 213, and 15 for a 46.75% on getting that correct.
Okay.
In season 2, as a show, we are 201, 204, and 6, which is 49.64%. So we're almost at a coin flip of 50-50 mark. I know I've been playing around with my plus money. That might have been the thing that threw us off last week. But just a couple picks shy of where we were last year. I think it's 414 from last year, 411 for this year. So I figured now is a good time as any. The numbers are about as close as they're going to be. As a show, almost 3 full points better than we were last year. So a salute to all of us collectively as a show for getting better at picking this sort of thing as we've learned and grown.
So to say that if we're approving roughly 3-4% a season, like if we're like right under 50, we should be 53, 56, 59, 62. Like,
I don't know if the laws of averages will allow us to progress at such a rate.
Let's get it over 70%. If we keep doing this for years, then you can just like stop working and just follow Salute Your Sports. Just take Salute Your Sports locks picks.
Exactly,
So,
yeah. But a
okay.
salute to all of us as a team, as a collective, as a show. We've been getting better. I mean,
I've gotten worse, but we'll see.
year one, none of us were picking at a 50% clip. This year, a couple of us are.
There you go. All right. Well, hey, improvements. Great to see. Anything else other than betting locks related, Tom?
No, I decided to keep it to just that for the show this week.
All right. So I have got myself a soccer statement / salute.
Oh boy.
Sorry to do this to you, Tom, but you know,
haven't I suffered enough?
Haven't you suffered enough having to listen to me go through my Champions League picks? So this is my statement and salute. I'm not necessarily saying it is per se the best day in sports because there is the Super Bowl, there's the World Cup final. But as far as sheer drama, the most dramatic day on your average sports calendar. Obviously, this rotates year to year, but it is the last week of soccer season in Europe. And they usually time this out. Doesn't always hit exactly, but this last weekend it hit the French League, the Spanish League, English League, Italian League. I think all of them except the German League, I think, wrapped up the week before. But 4 of the 5 biggest leagues in Europe all concluded their season over this last weekend, whether it be Saturday, Sunday, whatever. And the drama was amazing. So I was actually explaining this to my girlfriend because she doesn't know how it all works. And there's so many things to delve into. So on the last day of the soccer season, depending on how good your league is, you get extra Champions League slots. For example, the Spanish League and the English League are the best leagues in the world. They get 4 Champions League spots. Mm-hmm. Some of these other good leagues may get 2, some may get 3, et cetera, et cetera. But essentially, and again, this varies league by league, but I'll use like a rough comparison of, say, the Premier League. Like you have the top 4 teams go to the Champions League. I believe the next 2, 5th, and 6th go to the Europa League. And I think it's the last 3 get relegated. Now, some leagues have a whole system where you automatically get relegated. Others, I believe they actually do playoffs, is what they were doing in Germany this week. But correct, in the Champions League, 1 through 4 for the English League, 5 through 6 of the Europa League, 7th is the Europa League Conference qualifying, and 18th through 20th is relegation. So if you don't know what relegation means, you get sent down to the 2nd division in England. A lot of your matches are no longer on television in England, in the U.S. You're playing 2nd-level players. You're playing in small stadiums. Your fans are fed up. Your players are essentially getting paid Premier League salaries, but your team's not earning as much money in the 2nd division. So completely throws off your Castleman economics, your contract Castlemans, as you will. So going down on the last day, we've got teams fighting for 1st in the league. We've got teams fighting for Champions League, which is the main European competition for the top level clubs. Then Europa League is the 2nd main competition. And then we have teams fighting to avoid relegation. This specific weekend, Manchester City was down 2-0 in its game in the English Premier League. Liverpool was winning. If Liverpool had won and Man City had lost or tied, Liverpool would have won the league. Man City scored 3 goals between minutes 76 to 81 in the match to go on to win 3-2. They won the league title by 1 point. Had they tied, you get 1 for a tie, 3 for a win, 2 less points, they would have lost it by 1 point. Same Man City team that scored 2 goals in like stoppage time, like years ago, to beat Man United on the last day of the season. Meanwhile, we had teams getting relegated in Spain and France on like late goals, like teams scoring late goals to avoid relegation, teams allowing late goals to get relegated, or we had a team that like missed a penalty kick in the Spanish league. Had the guy made the penalty kick, they stay in the first division. Instead, he misses. They get relegated to the second division. I mean, it was just drama galore. It is literally the most dramatic day in sports. Like the whole weekend, it is incredible. And what the Premier League does is they purposely put all their matches at 10 a.m., local time here in America. So they're all going on simultaneously, and you're tracking all the scores to see like who makes the Champions League. Like there was like Tottenham and Arsenal, two historic teams, were trying to both make the Champions League. They both took care of business. Tottenham made it. So really dramatic. I would like to see, I know we've talked about this before, I would like to see America develop a similar system. I know you and I have talked about this before. I would love to see NFL, MLB, NBA teams get relegated. That would avoid tanking. You know, send the Jaguars to, like, they can come up with a new league. Heck, send them to the XFL or whatever new league we have going on right now, USFL, whatever it's called. Send them down, maybe create an NFL 2.0 where like the bottom 4 teams get relegated. All the new expansion teams start in this lower level of the NFL. I don't know what you want to do exactly. In the NBA, send them to the G League. In the MLB, the most embarrassing of all, send them to the AAA. Let's make these teams not tank. How exciting would the last game of the season be if you can get relegated? And I would argue this would be harder to enforce, but could we do something a little extra for the teams that finish with the best regular season records? Could there be a prize money for each franchise? Like that, marks the whole thing of like, hey, do you want to rest your guys the last week or two of the season? Like when you can win this extra prize money, because I know some of those teams get extra prize money, extra trophies for the regular season crowns out there in Europe. Like, could it be where like you've got like pots for draft picks? Like instead of like, I'm not saying you get the best record, you get the first pick, but we can have like the top like 10 teams are all in a pot. So if you get the best record, instead of getting the 32nd pick in the NFL, you get the 22nd, 23rd, whatever it may be. So give you a little extra incentive to get the best record. That stuff is obviously a little more complicated. My idea for relegation is absolutely doable. You get the worst record in the NFL, you don't belong in the NFL anymore. So instead of fighting for the number 1 pick, you get relegated. Top, bottom 2, 3, 4 teams, whatever it may be, relegate them. I want drama like we had in soccer this weekend across all of Europe. Just unbelievable weekend of soccer.
Yeah, unfortunately, like I just don't think that, like, in order to do that, you'd have to have like different antitrust exemptions lifted or something like that. Like the NFL would have to allow for other, like another tier of football to be allowed to compete with it.
Do it.
I mean, honestly, I mean, this is America, and we care about the bottom dollar more than anything else. You know, like have varying caps or have like different penalties or something put in place of just like, hey, if you finish with a bottom record, guess what? You don't, you know, you lose this much money, or you have to pay this much money back to like the collective bargaining, or not collective bargaining, but the shared revenue sources. You know, that sort of thing, where it's just like, yeah, you're going to get a smaller piece of the pie going forward as far as a moneymaker. I mean, that's something that will probably get people invested because, you know, at least like for the owners of these teams, because it is for the most part so dispassionate in America, as opposed to you look over, you know, across the pond, so to speak. And it definitely seems like, especially like with the EPL, there's really, really good rivalries that go on, and there's a lot of pride to winning and losing. Whereas here in America, we're all about, you know, the championship, kind of like lose a little bit of that, you know, regular season importance, like you said. So like a trophy for the regular season, you know, more money for players during the regular season as like a bonus pool, I think are absolutely great ideas. It'd be fun to see relegation. I just don't know how that's going to happen necessarily.
Yeah, for the record, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I wanted to, and I actually agree with you. It's a very interesting point where in America, like it is quite frankly all about the champion. In America, like if you lose in the NBA Finals or the World Series or the Super Bowl, quite frankly, no one cares. Unless you're the Buffalo Bills and you do it 4 years in a row, then you become like a story that people talk about. But like people don't care if you got second place. Like when people list the all-time greatest teams, what happened to those 73-9 Warriors? They're essentially erased from history because they didn't win the championship. And I think there's like the rivalries in like soccer in Europe are insane. So it's like, it just like there's a lot of pride in beating your rival. And it's not to say that there isn't some of that in the NFL. Obviously, as Bears fans, whenever the Bears beat the Packers, we are fired up about it. But if it comes in the context of a losing season, it doesn't have quite the same feel as what we see in Europe. And I don't know. I know NBA and MLB, they play multiple games. Obviously, like an MLB game, it's not really there's no upsets in the MLB because in one game, anyone could win. Like if the Reds beat the Dodgers on a given day, it's not like, oh my God, the world has exploded. But it is special when you have those games. And it is special in a European soccer season. There is not a single team that ever tanks in any game. Now, they do need rest. There is some teams that prioritize certain competitions like the Champions League, etc. So I can't say they're like actively giving it 100% in every game because they do have other competitions to think about. But some of these like lower level teams, the bottom teams in those leagues that aren't playing in the Europa League or Champions League, that aren't playing deep into their cup runs, these guys have just the regular season to focus about, and they are 100% putting their best foot forward, their best lineups forward. And when a smaller team, like I remember Cadiz a couple years ago, by the way, I think they just survived relegation. I think they were one of those teams that had a late win this weekend to avoid relegation. They were promoted to the first division a couple years ago, and they had like a season where at one point they beat Barcelona and Real Madrid in the same season, and those fans freaking lost their mind. Are you kidding me? That is a historic win. So I just love the concept of always trying to win, and I hate tanking so much. And I think there's obviously examples on both sides, but overall, I think more often than not, tanking doesn't win. Like the best franchises know how to win. Like you look at the Warriors, the Spurs before that, the Steelers for the longest time in the NFL, like the Patriots. These franchises regroup. They don't need to be at the bottom and at the top. Like it doesn't work. A lot of the teams that tank, like the Sixers, for example, trust the process. You wonder why those guys always choke in the playoffs? Because they don't have a winning mentality in that building. All those years of tanking, I say karma, Philly. That is karma. Forget the tanking. Let's relegate away.
I mean, I think that's as good note as any to call it.
I think so as well. All right. Well, hey, looks like, Tom, I believe next week is going to be our NBA Finals preview. So it's going to be fun.
Looking forward to it.
Don't give it away, and let's see what happens in these series. Let's see what happens with the injuries. But don't answer this. I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay.
But I know for a fact that we were both Warriors winning the ship last week. I know for a fact I am Warriors winning the ship. It sounds like you're not 100% convinced.
We'll have to see how things go for the next week or so.
Awesome. All right. Well, hey, thank you very much, Tom. Thank you very much to everyone who watches, listens to us. We will see you guys next week. Warriors. That'll do it. See you guys.